A major AI training data set contains millions of examples of personal data. That's right. And as we go down here, personally identifiable information has been found in DataComp Common Pool, one of the largest open source data sets used to train image generation models. And okay, you know what? Let's just read most of it. Millions of images of passports, credit cards, birth certificates, and other documents containing personally identifiable information are likely included in one of the biggest open source AI training sets new research has found. Thousands of images, including identifiable faces, were found in a small subset of DataComp Common Pool, a major AI training set for image generation scraped from the web. Because the researchers audited only 0.1% of Common Pool's data, they estimate that the real number of images containing personally identifiable information, including faces and identity documents, is in the hundreds of millions. So imagine the entire population of the United States, if not more, all have their data, their personally identifiable data, in these training data sets as these LLMs get trained. The bottom line, says William Agnew, a postdoctoral fellow in AI ethics at Carnegie Mellon University and one of the co-authors, is that anything you put online can be and probably has been scraped. The researchers found thousands of instances of validated identity documents, including images of credit cards, driver's licenses, passports, and birth certificates, as well as over 800 validated job application documents, including resumes and cover letters, which were confirmed through LinkedIn and other web searches as being associated with real people. In many more cases, the researchers did not have time to validate the documents or were unable to because of issues like image clarity. Why do you think I go over all of these cybersecurity news articles that I do all the time? Exactly this reason. A number of the resumes disclose sensitive information, including disability status, the results of background checks, birth dates and birthplaces of dependents, and race. When resumes were linked to people with online presences, researchers also found contact information, government identifiers, socio-demographic information, face photographs, home addresses, and the contact information of other people like references. And so here you have some examples, right? Example of identity-related documents found in Common Pool small-scale dataset show a credit card, a social security number, and a driver's license. When it was released in 2023, DataComp Common Pool, with its 12.8 billion data samples, was the largest existing dataset of publicly available image-text pairs, which are often used to train generative text-to-image models. While its curators said that Common Pool was intended for academic research, its license does not prohibit commercial use as well. In other words, this academic dataset can absolutely be legally used by OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, whomever. Common Pool was created as a follow-up to the, I want to say, Lion 5B dataset, which was used to train models including Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. It draws on the same source, web scraping done by the nonprofit Common Crawl between 2014 and 2022. Have any of you been on the internet between 2014 and 2022? Have you posted any personally identifying information on the internet between 2014 and 2022? Well, if you have, it's been scraped. And I have even more bad news. We're going to get into it more. I have like 3 more articles lined up on this. It gets even worse. While commercial models often do not disclose what data sets they are trained on, the shared data sources of DataComp, Common Pool, and Line 5B mean that the data sets are similar and that the same personally identifiable information likely appears in Line 5B, as well as in other downstream models trained on Common Pool data. So now we have an inheritance issue where some training data is based on other training data previously attained, and they just coalesce, they collate, they group together, right? And so you have more and more and more. And since Datacomp Common Pool has been downloaded more than 2 million times over the past 2 years, it is likely that there are many downstream models that are all trained on this exact data set. Those would duplicate similar privacy risks. Now, I want you to imagine what this means. So how do I explain? Okay, how about this? I'll try it this way. Imagine that you have data set A, and it's from 2014 to 2022. Okay, let me just see my okay. So you have data set A, right? It's up here. It's above my head, right? It's like this red thing right here. Now, data set A is the origin. It's the parent data set. And we have the entirety of the US population's personally identifiable information inside that red box. That's the original data set. Now, other people come along and they're like, hey, this LLM stuff is great. We need to train it. Can we use your data set and create like a subset of it? We have our own data and we would like to use your data. And you go, okay, sure. Because it's an academic thing, there's no reason why you would be prevented from doing such a thing. So now you have a company like Microsoft or Meta, Facebook, etc., and they go, okay, we're going to take this red box above my head here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take either all of it or a portion of it, and we're going to mix it up with some stuff that we have. And as you continue down this branch of continuing to mix and match models, what you're going to end up with is a bunch of data that is repeatedly showing up. So maybe Facebook had a bunch of data that already existed in the common data, and now you just have it repeated and maybe even expanded a bit. So what that does is if you go back to the bell curve, it's almost like I planned the stream, you know? It's almost like I planned the stream. What you're going to end up with is some people are going to end up in the middle of this bell curve, of this Gaussian curve, where your data is going to pop up as a higher likelihood of statistically having it picked out and used for whatever purpose inside of the LLM. So you're going to have people that are going to end up on the left or the right extremes, but then you're going to have people who are going to just show up more and more and more, right? So this presents a huge issue. That's why the duplicate data actually increases the privacy risk, right? Good intentions are not enough. You can assume that any large-scale web scrape data always contains content that shouldn't be there. I want to read that again. You can assume that any large-scale web scrape data always contains content that shouldn't be there, says Abiba Berhane, a cognitive scientist and tech ethicist who leads Trinity College Dublin's AI Accountability Lab. Indeed, the curators of Datacomp Common Pool were themselves aware it was likely that personally identifiable information would appear in the dataset and did take some measures to preserve privacy, including automatically detecting and blurring faces. But in their limited dataset, Hong's team found and validated over 800 faces that the algorithm had missed. And they estimated that overall, the algorithm had missed 102 million faces in the entire dataset. That means that your face is on there. On the other hand, they did not apply filters that could have recognized known personally identifiable information, character strings like emails or social security numbers. Filtering is extremely hard to do well, says Agnew. They would have had to make very significant advancements in PII detection and removal that they haven't made public to be able to effectively filter this. What's more, other privacy issues that face blurring don't address, like blurring filter is automatically applied, it's optional and can be removed. Additionally, the captions that often accompany the photos, as well as the photo's metadata, often contain even more personal information such as names and exact locations. And so this is just an example of some of the images here, right? It's just personally identifiable information. Another privacy mitigation measure comes from Hugging Face, a platform that distributes training data sets and hosts Common Pool, which integrates with a tool that theoretically allows people to search for and remove their own information from a dataset. But as the researchers note in their paper, this would require people to know that their data is there to start. Do you know that your data is in there? You'd have to go and find out. So if you want to go find out if your data is in there, go to Hugging Face, and you can go and search for your own data and have it removed. But here's a problem. Getting your data removed from one data set probably isn't enough anyways. Why? Even if someone finds out their data was used in a training data set, and exercises their right to deletion, technically the law is unclear about what that means. If the organization only deletes data from the training datasets but does not delete or retrain the already trained models, then the data's still there. One way or another, you're going to have your data in these models. And there's nothing you can do about it. Now, it gets even worse. We haven't even got to the other articles. It gets even worse. The researchers also found numerous examples of children's personal information, including depictions of birth certificates, passports, and health status, but in contexts suggesting that they had been shared for limited purposes. It really illuminates the original sin of AI systems built off public data. It's extractive, misleading, and dangerous to people who have been using the internet with one framework of risk, never assuming it would all be hoovered up by a group trying to create an image generator. And you know that this data also exists. By the way, this isn't just for images. You know that it exists in general data when it comes to just pure textual inputs and outputs. It does not have to be image generation. That was one article. We're going to keep going. Now, if you think it's over, it's not over. We're going to pull up the next one. Let me make sure I have my notes. All right. It gets worse. Are you ready? Meta fed its AI on almost everything you've posted publicly since 2007. Unless you're in the EU, there's no ability to opt out of AI training settings that keep Facebook or Instagram posts public. Meta has acknowledged that all text and photos that adult Facebook and Instagram users have publicly published since 2007 have been fed into its artificial intelligence models. The truth of the matter is that unless you have consciously set those posts to private since 2007, Meta has just decided that you will scrape all of the photos and all of the text from every public post on Instagram and Facebook since 2007 unless you set them to private. But the company has been vague about how it's used, when it started scraping, and how far back its collection goes. It only confirms that public data was indeed scraped. Clay Baugh, somebody in this article, said that Meta doesn't scrape data from users who are under the age of 18. When Labour Party Senator Tony Sheldon asked if Meta would scrape the public photos of his children on his own account, Clay Baugh confirmed it would and was unable to clarify if the company also scraped adult accounts that were created when the user was still a child. So we have a very serious issue here where one social media platform, just one, used the amount of data that you put into it, all your public posts, all your family posts, all your thoughts about stuff on Facebook, all that stuff that you thought was going to just, not really mean anything. Unfortunately, it means quite a bit. It gets worse. I'm not done. It gets worse. Next article. Reddit sues AI company Anthropic for allegedly scraping user comments to train chatbot Claude. Now, there is no settlement, as far as I can tell, between this, in this lawsuit between Reddit and Anthropic. But Reddit says that Anthropic went through a huge scraping bot farm on all of their posts on Reddit. They essentially just took everything that they could out of Reddit. Every post, every username, every picture, everything. And they did so without asking permission for Reddit. They just went through it and then they used it as part of their training data. And MyTech, it does not matter. I'm kind of ignoring chat to stay focused, but MyTech, even if you deleted your account, you can go through archives. Everything on the internet is forever. You can get archives of stuff you've deleted. I can't talk about the details of it because it's security issues, but I know of several ways to, if I wanted to, I could dox people in chat right now. It would require some effort, but I could find previous accounts you've had, even if you've deleted them, and there are ways, and it's been done. It doesn't end there. It gets even worse. LinkedIn used private messages illegally to train AI. Microsoft-owned social networking site denies allegations in California class action lawsuit. LinkedIn illegally used private messages to train artificial intelligence models according to a California class action lawsuit seeking damages from millions of users. The filing, made by Alessandro De La Torre on behalf of all others similarly situated, accuses the professional social networking site of unlawfully disclosing its premium customers' private messages to third parties. According to the lawsuit, LinkedIn quietly introduced a privacy setting in August 2024, which automatically opted premium subscribers into the use of their personal data for training generative AI models by the company and its affiliates, aka Microsoft. The class action claim further accuses the Microsoft-owned company of changing its privacy policy in September after the data sharing was noticed and caused a harsh public backlash. It describes the move as a violation of LinkedIn's own privacy terms and part of a pattern of attempting to cover its tracks. We have a very serious issue here where we have a system that can hallucinate greatly. It can be jailbroken. You end up in a statistical situation potentially where your personal data shows up at the top whenever it attempts to figure out what's going on. It cannot reason or think or remain logical about what it does. I'm a god. And anything that you've done since at least 2004 online is part of the training data. We have an extremely serious problem, and people don't realize what this means. What this means is that you're going to have a situation. There might be people who don't know that I've covered this before. We've covered this before. I believe I covered this exact article, if I am correct. So what's happening, I'll bring it up again, is that people will put their own names inside of systems like ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT will simply hallucinate histories about them. For example, it can make up claims about sexual harassment scandals, false bribery allegations, and alleged child not very good activity. This is one of these stories I've covered. Norwegian user Arve Halmar Holman wanted to find out if ChatGPT had any information about him. He was confronted with a made-up horror story. ChatGPT presented the complainant as a convicted criminal who murdered 2 of his children and attempted to murder his 3rd son. To make matters worse, the fake story included real elements of his personal life. Among them were the actual number and the gender of his children and the name of his hometown. Furthermore, ChatGPT also declared that the user was sentenced to 21 years in prison. Given the mix of clearly identifiable personal data and fake information, this is without a doubt in violation of the GDPR. But there it is. So this is the kind of situation we find ourselves in as we continue to promote the use of AI. When I say that you need to stop using it, I mean that in every sense of the word. You have to stop using it. Stop using this stuff. Just stop it, please. Because the more you continue to use it, the more you continue using it, the more that you're going to have a problem where your data is going to end up being used against you in ways you didn't even think possible. And we are just talking about the first step of these LLMs, which is the training. You're in the training data. Then you have reinforcement phases where a human checks the outputs of the LLMs and goes, yes, this is good, and no, this is bad. That's going to have inherent biases. And then at the end, you're going to be using the system yourself. And we've already gone over how even as early as the 60s with the creation of the system called Eliza, which was a chatbot that was kind of a precursor to these AI chatbots. In the 60s, people were telling these simplified chatbots deep, dark secrets that they wouldn't tell another human soul. You start mixing in, you're dumping in questions that you're asking, you're dumping in your personal feelings, you're trying to get, information. This is probably a data consumer's or a data aggregator's wet dream right now. These people who sit at the top of the technocratic system that we live in today, at the top of these companies are basically just waking up with raging hard ones every morning because they love how much you're all bought into. Stop using AI. Vote with your dollar. Vote with your dollar.